Josh, Jake, Tanner, and Steve all sent me DMs on the Dan Patrick Show because apparently Dan Patrick said sources are telling him San Diego State will get an invite to the Pac-12 by the end of the week. Hey, if that happens, that's great. My biggest question is, does that bring ESPN to the table to negotiate a larger TV contract? I don't know. I don't think it does. And my other question is, obviously regionally, San Diego State, I think, has a lot of leverage because they're the only Southern California property available, right? I mean, they're the only ones. Really from, I guess Berkeley south. They're the only team south of Berkeley that's available.
Yeah.
And I think they are absolutely in San Diego. They're a property. They're a chip. No doubt about it. If they join the Pac-12, I don't think it changes things much for the Pac-12 because that's a team that doesn't win a whole lot of P5 games. And if they end up, and listen, they have a beautiful new facility. Snapdragon Stadium, they got a nice win this weekend. I get all of that. But my question is, does San Diego make the Pac-12 more money?
Don't know that you can say that.
I don't think you can say
and
that.
By the way,
is it a great win and a good ad? Yes, it is. I don't think it makes them more money.
I think the thing with this is the streaming portion. So the only way to me, and again, I'm no industry expert, right? But we've covered this topic a lot. We've delved into this thing really deep. The only way to me that San Diego State makes any sense at all for the Pac-12 is if you're simply saying, hey, we're going to work something out with Amazon, let's say, or a streaming partner who is going to give you extra money on top of what ESPN would do. I don't know any other way, because of this pro rata thing where ESPN's going to pay you equal share if you add P5 teams, but they're not really going to pay you if you don't add P5 teams. I don't understand how that's going to work out. And forgive me if I don't have a lot of faith in Georgie Poo to get the job done. I don't have a lot of faith. I don't have faith that the guy who, is rolling out back of the envelope mathematics, doesn't give, I don't have a lot of trust in that guy. And so that's why I say it's cool that San Diego State is the only property in that part of the country. I can respect that you want to add that. I have no problem with that. But you're not, once again, in my opinion, getting away from the fact that you don't have great distribution. And even if you do get distribution done, you're not getting paid on par with the other conferences.
Yeah.
That's the issue. That's I don't know how you solve that right now.
Yeah, I don't know how you solve it either. And again, I think the Pac-12 has value. I just think I don't know how you if you're ESPN leverage the Pac-12. Because with the NBC late night schedule that they have announced with USC and UCLA and this Big Ten After Dark program that NBC Sports is going to have, where they have the late game window that's going to include USC and UCLA, obviously.
That's right, T.
You're not going to draw more viewers than you're going to have with USC and UCLA. And the hard part is that with diminished value, I still maintain the Pac-12's best available option is probably an ESPN Tier 1 and Amazon Tier 2. I don't know that Fox brings the Pac-12 all that much value because, again, putting Utah on FS2 or putting Utah on FS1 and not sending announcers last Thursday damages the conference. It doesn't bring value.
Yeah.
Especially on a Thursday night going up against Thursday night football. I don't know that brings a lot of value, but here's the other thing. When you make this new TV deal, are we going to continue to see Thursday night Pac-12 games? I would hope not. And if it's with Amazon, are you going to compete on Amazon with the Pac-12 versus the NFL on a Thursday night? I would hope not. Come on. Yeah. I would hope not. So how this deal ends up is going to be critical. I hope I'm wrong because obviously there's a ton of Pac-12 fans. And I think there's a lot of Pac-12 fans grasping at straws here. I just don't know. I don't know how this all shakes out.
Yeah, and
I really don't.
The trust thing, I think, is to me is the biggest deal. If we said that San Diego State would never go to the PAC and Dan Patrick was right, I don't care about any of that. Frankly, it's good for us. It's good for us if the Pac-12 is good. Let's just be honest about it. I would love for the conference to be doing like what the Big Ten is doing or even what the Big 12 is doing, but that's just not the case. And that's what I'm saying. Like you like your point about competing with the NFL or this Fox thing, or like, why is it? You ever stop and think, why is it that it's always the Pac-12 who has these issues? Why is it that we don't hear about, not sending announcers to Alabama, LSU? Oh, that's right, because it's Alabama, LSU, and it's the SEC, and that would never be a possibility.
Are you really telling me that TV networks are not spending money to travel their announcers?
Come on.
Like, that's incredible.
Come on.
I have a real hard time believing that. And if you're not going to travel your announcer, use Bill Riley. Use you've got to have somebody on the scene.
You got to be in the building, bro.
It's remarkable. Yeah. And again, it's this attitude that we talk about a lot. If you want to be a major market, act like a major market.
Come on, man.
If you want to be a P5 conference, you got to act like that. You've got to. And again, I just go back to Brett Yormark and how he's handled himself with the Big 12 and getting. The thing that is so clear about the Big 12 is they're together. They're all in lockstep. The vision, they've all bought in. They're allowing him to operate. He's got this deal done.
Yeah.
The Pac-12 is the exact opposite. We're more worried about torpedoing the prosperity of UCLA that you let slip away because you weren't making any money than you are about building back better. That's the thing that's
and
just...
don't forget what everyone said about Brett Yormark when he took over the job. What did everybody say? Well, nothing's happening in the Big 12. He's not a good commissioner. It's been very quiet around those parts. And now what do you have? You have new deals. You're adding new teams. You're doing all this amazing stuff. Like you're doing speeches in Orlando at UCF, I believe it was, where you sound amazing and you're getting all these random questions and you're just handling them perfectly. Like, that's what I'm saying, man. Like, I would just love a day where we could jump on the show and say the Pac-12 is operating at this really high level and you're not losing irreplaceable entities like SC and UCLA.
Because really right now, is Oklahoma and Texas that irreplaceable?
No.
It doesn't feel like that.
Well, and they're not talking about it. That's the thing. Like, you notice, like, what is the Pac-12 talking about? Well, how are we going to replace these two schools?
No, how are we going to torpedo UCLA from leaving?
Yeah, even worse, right?
Come on. Yeah. Tom Basilius says San Diego State and Boise State are the best options for the Pac-12.
I don't know that you can definitively say that,
I don't think Boise State's a P5 conference team. I don't, and I know they're getting all new facilities and totally understand it. That is not that the Boise market, and I love Boise. It is truly one of my favorite cities in the Mountain West.
Great place, dude.
It's not a P5 conference town.
With all due respect.
It's got a ceiling on it. And by the way, I think being the king of the Mountain West is way better than being the bottom of the Pac-12. Wow. Honest to goodness, if you are, and that's why, like, I look at San Diego State and I ask myself, how much access do you really have to the Pac-12 championship game when you join that conference? Ask me in a decade, because that's how long it's going to take you to get there. No, it's going to take you forever to get there, and and the money's not going to be that great. If I am everybody in the Mountain West, I am just chilling. Bro, I am doing what San Diego State and Boise are doing. I am building my facilities. I am renovating my stadiums. Like, San Diego State has done everything right to this point. Sit back and wait. Because and I know nobody talks about it, with Craig Thompson retiring, a new commissioner coming in, a new TV deal on the way, what becomes of the Mountain West? Uh-oh. Because if you're the Mountain West and you can go and poach a Washington State and Oregon State, because I still maintain the Big Ten's not done, and I think we're all waiting for the Big Ten's domino to fall.
Yes.
If those schools are available to you, why would you change? Why would you leave? If you are San Diego State, are you better off at the bottom of the Pac-12, where still distribution's a huge question? How are you, if you are San Diego State, how are you going to join that conference and sign a grant of rights? Because to join the conference, and I want to make sure everybody knows this, to join a new conference, you have to sign the grant of rights blindly as you enter the conference. You don't get to wait and see. You sign your grant of rights when you agree to join the conference?
I started having second thoughts.
Because you don't have a vote. Not right off the get. You don't have a vote. You don't. So San Diego State is going to join the Pac-12, sign a blind grant of rights, and hope?
No.
That would be foolish. That's the one thing. If there's no TV deal announced or in place, or how on earth is San Diego State going to join the Pac-12? That would be a huge risk. A huge risk.
Great point.
I don't know. Let's see. Ruff's official says if TCU leaves the Big 12, the conference is dead in the water. Nobody's saying TCU's leaving the Big 12.
And
Paul Savinick says, hi from London. Go Jazz. No, go Chelsea.
there you go.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Go Chelsea. Tanner Plummer says, speaking of Craig Thompson, did anyone see that he had a front row seat to witness Puka's amazing catch? Karma's a B. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Josh Lovern says, Larry Scott to the Mountain West, LOL. Seriously. I mean, you know. ABC says, PAC dead. PAC will not survive, obviously. We'll see. I don't know. I don't know. Show me the TV money, man.
I just don't. My thing is, I've kind of come around to the idea that they'll probably be around in some form or fashion, but you can't tell me you're going to be around as a P5 conference and like competing for national championships. There's no way, dude.
Yep. ABC says, Monty, this past college football Saturday, all I could hear was Alabama.
Roll Tide.
And then in the Clemson ACC context, North Carolina. You're welcome. You should blame me. That's 100% my fault. Hey, San Diego State Aztec, how are you this morning, sir? He says that San Diego State in the PAC very likely doesn't add value now, but in 7 years, when the next round of media negotiations come around, they will, in my opinion. More resources, better recruiting. As a San Diego State fan, do you really want them to join the Pac-12?
We're playing in 7-year windows? Like, come on, man.
Well, but if you're San Diego State, I just think San Diego State has a real chance, along with Boise, and if you can be the best of the best in the Mountain West, are you not in a better position than you would be in the Pac-12? Because there's no chance. When is San Diego State going to be better than Utah or Oregon? Can you beat them? Sure you can. But over the course of a season, can you win a conference championship? When does San Diego State ever go to the Rose Bowl? Probably in a decade. Do you know how hard? Look at the climb for Utah. Utah finally went to the Rose Bowl last year. Like, it is such a difficult proposition. And now you've built Snapdragon. You have this palace of a football stadium. Why?
And you're gonna go to a conference that doesn't even really pay that well?
And I think, honest to goodness, I think you have a lot of value to the Big 12.
Yeah.
I think you have a lot of value to the ACC, to other, because I think the one thing nobody ever talks about is what the ACC is going to do. Because the ACC ain't just sitting around on their massive grant of rights deal with every one of their unis. They're not. They're obviously going to, I think the ACC is the sleeping giant in some of this. Now,
What's going to happen, Tonto?
Does the Big Ten get a deal with Amazon? I think that changes the ballgame significantly. Because then they can add more teams without taking money out of their current pockets, right? So I think that's a big deal. But I think the ACC's a big part of this conversation.
I just don't know why, if you're San Diego State, you would just jump right on the Pac-12 bandwagon. Why would you not look at being a travel partner for one of the Midwest or Eastern time zone conferences? Why would you not like try to, because it is true that talent-wise, it's very difficult. This is the challenge BYU faces, right?
Yes.
Where you're heading into this Power 5 conference, but you may not have the talent to withstand the beating you're going to take in the Big 12. So that same logic applies to San Diego State. So instead of taking just what's right in front of you and just jumping right in the Pac-12, why would you not get on the phone with these other commissioners, Yormark and Kevin Warren and all these other guys, and say, hey, like, what value could we bring you? What do you need? What could we possibly do? Could we be a travel partner, Kevin Warren? Because I know you're adding Oregon and SC and UCLA, and like you're adding all these West Coast schools. Why don't you add us to that mix? Even though we're not even close to being a Big Ten team, that needs to be said. But you kind of see what I'm getting at. Like, if you don't have the talent, why not try to put yourself in a valuable kind of power play position from a business standpoint? That's where I think San Diego State could potentially leverage themselves to try to climb into that $40 million a year number. Like, that would be nice for a school the size of San Diego State. That's why I think you shouldn't be joining the Pac-12.
Yeah, we'll see. I think it's going to be very, I think if you are a college football team in this country and you are not looking at who you are and where you are and what your next potential growth opportunity is, you're crazy.
Yeah.
I think that's why when you are Brett Yormark, you have to go around and coddle the troops. You got to go and kiss and hug everybody's baby and tell them how great they are.
Excellent strategy, sir.
You got to go to UCF. You got to go to BYU, Houston, Cincy, Okie State, K-State, Kansas. Look what Kansas is doing. Mm-hmm. Look at the win by Kansas this weekend. You know, like you got to go to TCU. You got to go to all of your constituents and say, you're the best. You're awesome. You're the most important team in the conference. Love you, buddy. All right, cool. Here's that grant of rights. Go ahead and sign it over. Like, you got to go and make that thing happen.
Yeah, you do.
And I think that's what Brett Yormark has done, and he has not talked a whole lot, nor should he. You got to let your actions speak louder than your words, and I think it's something that George Kliavkoff has never embraced. Is you've got to let your actions speak louder than your words, and I think it's why the Pac-12 is where it is. And I think it's why the Big 12 is where it is. I think when you look at all the tea leaves, I think you're going to really struggle to get the kind of leverage you need to survive if you're the Pac-12. Because the process, again, I will remind you, is your conference, so the Pac-12 goes and negotiates a TV distribution deal or a rights deal, whether that be with Amazon, ESPN, whoever. And then you go back to your individual members and you say, hey, here's our deal, sign your grant of rights. And then that's the way that the conference works. So when San Diego State comes into a conference, as it's been explained to me, they don't get a vote. They're just going to say, okay, we're joining the Pac-12 no matter what you guys do. Here's our grant of rights. Mm-hmm. And you sign that documentation that says you have the right to distribute our games on national television. If I'm San Diego State, I'm waiting for that number. And hey, maybe George Kliavkoff has that deal done and it just hasn't leaked out, but the Pac-12 leaks like a sieve. I mean, they've got more holes than Swiss cheese over there, dude. Like, I would be really surprised by that. You know, like I think it's interesting.
The thing that needs to be said is San Diego State, you can't afford to make some catastrophic mistake. Like, not that you're a fragile program, but you're in a really good spot, all things considered right now. So to put yourself in a position where you sign, because remember, the grant of rights thing, most of the time, that's like a decade-long proposition. You're not signing for a year and then we'll reevaluate.
Well, and now you're looking at 5 to 7 year deals. You're looking at 5-year deals. Because if you are, think about Utah, who's excelled at a very high level in a really mediocre conference. Are you signing away your rights for 10 years?
No way.
That's foolish. And the way that the money has changed in television, you don't want a 10-year deal. A 5-year deal is fine with an early out clause, with pro rata agreements that say, hey, if we add another P5 school, you guys will pay us for that P5 school on average the way you're paying for all of our other members. Absolutely. All right, great. And then, the other thing about San Diego State is they're making so little money in the Mountain that I think they're probably willing to take less because it'll be a small bump in the Pac-12. So, yeah, anyway. Kay Nuren says the Big 12 is going for the Zags, Washington State, Oregon, and Oregon State. Well, I think Gonzaga is a very interesting piece of this. And by the way, I got the high-level explanation that it is Gonzaga. I got 10 people who are like, hey, man, I paid for my degree from Gonzaga, and I'd appreciate if you'd pronounce it the right way.
That's right, T.
Okay. That's fine. You look at the tea leaves I look at grandma changing. Okay, that's cool. Eric and Raleigh says Zags to the Big 12 for basketball and Oregon State only for football. Yeah, I doubt those only deals are usually not very productive. Is what I would say. BB says, does PAC mean what this Jazz team does to other teams' offenses? Okay. Boyd Lake says Gonzaga. It's not Gonzaga. It's not Gonzaga. It's actually, the proper pronunciation is Gonzaga. This could be true if athletics was the sole consideration for realignment, but things like billions of dollars of R1 funding moves the needle too. If San Diego State was invited, they would jump at the opportunity. Probably.
Yeah.
Could be. NY Monty fan says, Monty, you say Gonzaga however you want. Exactly. Geensog A. Boyd likes it.
Gonzaga.
Exactly. You would not believe the mail we get on this show about things we say.
People were pissed.
Like, it is crazy. Like, this goes back to Bojan Bagsnatchevich.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we had the Google pronunciation of Bojan Bogdanovic.
Mm-hmm.
Bojan.
Yeah, and we used to have fun with it.
Bojan Bogdanovic.
And people got so. Are you guys? Look, listen. I'm just trying to get some clarity here. Are you guys just being dicks about this?
Bojan Bogdanovic.
Like, what's the story here, man? You know it's Bogdanovich. Yeah, I know. Then why won't you say it the right way? Because
Bojan.
it's not as fun. Well, that means you're a dick. Yeah, I know. I'm aware. Thanks. Like, it's not as fun.